That's an eternity of basketball ahead of us. Another beautiful steal perpetrated by Todd White. The action continues. A let's go situation here. Alex Compton going up against a double team. Jeffrey Moore has perfect access to the bucket. Watch yourself on that normal replay of that last bit of action was Juan Fernandez actually wanting to dish up the against Master Jaworski. We're crossing the twilight zone. That's an eternity of basketball ahead of us.
At San Miguel, we believe in the Filipinos' potential to rise to our greatest challenges and support our collective aspirations for a better world. Malasakit is part of everything we do. We uplift the lives of generations of Filipinos. We are building a better world. Today, our efforts are focused on building a more resilient and globally competitive Philippines. For us, this means a nation with the necessary infrastructure to thrive in the global economy. A nation that enjoys energy security and food security. One that can attract the kind of investment that will create support projects that will generate economic vitality. A nation where prosperity is widely shared. We focus on industries on which the country's future depends, and we work to balance economic development with sustainability. This means protecting our natural resources and creating strong, cohesive communities where every Filipino has equal access to a better future. This means forging ahead with projects that will transform the Philippine economy and, more importantly, our communities.
I believe that San Miguel has the capability and heart to do it. The lesson we learned from the past offers so much potential for the present. They shape our sense of what's possible.
At San Miguel, our ambition comes from the hope of leaving a world that will be better for our children than the one we found. San Miguel Corporation, your world made better.
Welcome to an eternity of basketball. We are part of the Globally Ballin Network. If you check out the YouTube channel of Globally Ballin, these are the most trending episodes. Pochwino is at number 1, all the way down to Atoyko. Which one's your favorite? Keep watching. And then check out globallyballin.com for original articles, audio and video projects, and all the shows on the network. Here we are. It's episode 250 at kompleto ang ating crew today. It's Sid Ventura, Jay Mercado, Noel Zarate, and I'm Charlie Cuna for a special kind of show. Kasi mag-50 na po ang PBA. Magiging ginto na ang ating favorite league. And because of that, we're gonna add 10 names to the 40 greatest list to make it a nice round number of 50 players, the greatest ever. So it's been a topic of hot discussion lately, and we also gave our little input to that. We'll have some special guests later on to discuss with us what they think about the possible selections, guys. But of course, we're powered by San Miguel Corporation, by the way. And then GB helps us out, Globally Ballin. So pag-usapan natin, I think we should start, guys, by obviously, because of the 50th anniversary, which will be on April 9. Very soon, the PBA will announce the 10 names. So 10 names will be added to complete the 50 greatest players. And the selection committee was chosen, guys, just to let everyone know. It was composed of Don Ramon Fernandez, the fortune cookie Atoyko, the triggerman Alan Kaidik, then broadcasters Kinito Henson and Dr. J. Andy Howe, Coach Dante Silverio, former PBA Commissioner Sunny Barrios, and writers Al Mendoza, Nelson Beltran, and Ding Marcelo. So yan ang naging komite para pag-usapan at pagdesisyonan kung sinong ilalagay sa top 50. So guys, umpisa natin ang discussion. We all have our own lists, so we can show the first one first, yung kay Jay Mercado. Pakita natin on the screen, Carly. And Jay, pasadahan mo na yung listahan mo.
Sige, well, given naman yung Junior Fard and Scotty Thompson should be there basically because the criteria set forth by the initial 25 yung committee ng 25 greatest was that all MVP winners should be automatically included in the list, no? So we are just following that particular criteria. Now, whether one or two or both should be included talaga without that criteria, that's another topic to be discussed, no? But yung nga, Fajardo, Junmar, and Scotty basically are there because they are previous MVP winners. Junmar is a given because he's an 8-time MVP. So even if so I think that's pretty much ano na yan, no? I'm very particular with the selection of Abby King and Arnie Tuadles, no, because I feel that from the get-go, from the original 25 greatest list, no, they should already have been included.
Yeah,
no. So
I agree.
I was surprised that they were not even included in the 40 greatest. And ngayon, siguro it's about time that they get their juice. Na. Abby King basically revolutionized the power forward position. Before when you say power forward, so much emphasis is put into the description of power. No, Abby King actually epitomized what power is all about. He was the inventor of the kalawit rebound in the PBA and was the first player to actually do reverse two-handed dunk in the PBA among the local players. On the other hand, si Arnie Tuadles, more than the stats, more than the championships, I think is probably one of the most difficult players to defend. Because of his contra-tiempo moves. I think a lot of players, whether it's Glenn Capash, who was already articulating this in our show, napakahirap daw na bantayan si Arnie. Akala, very deceptive siya kasi akala mo mabagal, and yet he can produce the points and he can score despite the fact that Glenn Capascio is also probably one of the greatest perimeter defenders in the league, no? Nelson Aceito, no, obviously, is another obvious choice. No, he should have been there in the 40 greatest. No, I have to mention this. No, why? Because yung 25 greatest kasi noong 2000 pinili yan, hindi pa retired si Nelson noon. So while many people would have thought that probably Nelson would have been included in the 25 greatest, I think he would have been it would have been more appropriate that he was part of the 40 greatest, and yet he was not included, which was quite a surprise because he could have been easily a 2-time MVP. No.
Right.
Yoye Villamin started with Crispa, but he was a backup initially for Crispa, no, kay Philip Cesar, kay Abet Gidaben, and yet, no, ang sabi nga nila, no, he blossomed under Coach Tommy Monotok's tutelage. No, he became a defender, a primary defender of the Redmanizers when Crispa introduced defense as part of their game plan. No, in 1983, that's the reason why he was one of the key people in the Grand Slam conquest. And then, of course, in 1987, he placed runner-up in the MVP race. No? Danny Siegel is also an obvious choice. If Abby King revolutionized the number 4 position, Danny Siegel was the obvious benchmark, gold standard for the free position, the small forward position. Manny Victorino, on the other hand, played during the time when there were very good centers. We had Abet Gidaben, Ramon Fernandez, Yoye Villamin, Philip Cesar, etc., etc. And he was one of those that was part of the restricted trading list, no? Right. The original restricted trading list. In 1985, nagkaroon ng si Commissioner Mariano Yenko, Tommy Manotok, that's the deputy. Ang original trading list, no? Restricted trading list. Manny Victorino was part of that, Abet, Buon, and initially Philip Cesar. In 1987, nawala si Philip, pumasok si Yoye Villamin. Yet Manny Victorino was still there.
Yeah.
Bong Hawkins, part of the Grand Slam, a key catalyst in the Grand Slam conquest of Alaska. I think it's also given that kahit na dilata di
Gabetsin ko nga eh.
Yung pintalon niya, he's probably one of the smartest, the shrewdest, and the most cunning players that you can ever find. No? May halong gulang pa yan, pero yet, that's Bong Hawkins. And finally, Olsen Rosella, Um, almost a Grand Slam winner. Contributed heavily in San Miguel's in all the 9 titles of San Miguel where he was part of. He was a lead point guard of that team, and he was a leader of a team that was studded with superstars, whether it was Vi or DS or Nick Velasco or Dorian Peña. Siya ang leader.
Even Nelson.
Even Nelson, but I don't think Nelson won a championship with San Miguel.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
So that's Jay's list. Now, just to put things in proper perspective, a lot of our selections, Sid's, Noel's, and mine, are the same as Jay's. So anyway, we'll go to Sid's list naman now. Sid, pasada mo na mabilis. Ano yung mga thoughts mo dun sa 10 mo?
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
Sid ba? No, si Noel yata. Sorry. This
All right,
Noel
no
first.
problem.
Ako ba? Wala pa. Hindi pa nagbabago yung listahan eh.
Sige.
Yan.
Yeah, Noel. Okay. Well, guys, we have in common 7 players. Okay, let's just put it that. Yeah, nilagay ko, I actually made the poster to this. I put in the poster 7 players that we all agreed upon. So magkakatalo na lang tayo sa tatlong hindi tayo nagkakasundo. So I still have Junmar and Scotty because they are, of course, MVPs. Abby King, Arnie Tuadles, and Nelson Saitono, as Jay eloquently put. Yan yung mga kasama natin. Pati si Danny Siegel and Manny Victorino. So the difference na lang in my list are guys like Jun Papa, Estoy Estrada, and L.A. Tenorio. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack by saying L.A. Tenorio is still an active player, but he has an achievement that I don't think is ever going to be broken. Probably it's going to be broken in about 10 years. I'm not quite sure. Yung Ironman streak niya, and he was a catalyst in so many championships as well, be it for Alaska, be it for kung saan siya naglaro, even for Ginebra. Everybody overlooks what Estoy Estrada has done also in his career, averaging almost 20 points a game. Siguro if I'm going to make a change and later on I'll have a change of heart with some of the players, it could be Jun Papa, who's probably yung pinakamahina kong entry dito. So I'm going to side with some of you guys. You're also going to change some of your selections as we have this discussion, especially when we get into our list. But these are mine at the moment. And again, I'm pointing out, we agree on 7 players on our list. So just to keep it short.
Okay. So yun yung kay Noel. Jun Papa, Estoy Estrada, L.A. Tenorio. Yun yung other 3 ni Noel. Diba? Okay, let's move on now. Kay Sid naman. And just for everyone's information, we posted these lists of ours sometime in early Feb, I think.
Yeah.
On the Facebook page of AEOB. So some of us have a couple of changes today. We have change of heart already from that time.
Yeah.
But these were the lists that we posted. Go, Sid. Si Sid naman.
Yeah.
Sid's next 10, Carly.
Okay, so my list kind of similar to Jay's, but yeah, like Charlie mentioned, I had a change of heart with one of them, especially after the person replacing him guessed it, and I did a little more research. I'm replacing the Bullet, Dindo Pomaran, with the Jet, Jeffrey Carriazo. I think body of work, head to head. Jeff had the better career than Dindo. No offense to the Bullet, Dindo, one of the greatest point guards the PBA has ever seen. But yeah, I'm slotting him in at my 10th slot, and all of the others mentioned. Well, Jay and Noel have made their cases for them. I just like to say, lang, I really think Scotty is deserving, even though he's still playing, because he's also kind of revolutionized his own position. He's probably the best rebounding guard I have seen since Sonny Jaworski.
Exactly.
Diba? Yun yung, that's what he brings to the table, and he's really anong tawag dito? He's really changed his style of play. No, dati hindi tumitira sa labas yan, ngayon tumitira na siya. And his numbers, I don't have his stats in front of me right now, but I think he averages pretty crazy rebounds and assists. Ano? So, yeah.
14-7-5 yata.
Yeah, 14, 7, and 5. 7 rebounds. Yung 7 is rebound or assist?
It's rebounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebounds.
So, can you imagine that? 6'1", averaging 7 rebounds. That's higher than most centers. You know? So, yun. The others naman, ayan, I don't need to, I've always believed that Abe should have been there. Top 25 pa lang along with Arnie. And, well, si Nelson yung I've been talking to a lot of coaches and players, former coaches, former players, and the most common name that's come up na sino yung gusto mo makita sa next 10, it's always been Nelson.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the most common answers I've heard, and his record speaks for itself. It's really a wonder why he also didn't make it
Right.
sa top 40, sa 40 greatest. Yo-Yo, of course, 7-time defensive player of the year. That's a very underrated fact.
Mm-hmm.
No, of course, Dynamite Danny also um, had his moments, and Manny Victorino also 10-time champion ata si Manny, ano?
Yes, correct.
10-time champion. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't know that.
Manny
Of course,
Victorino?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think, di ba? Tama ba? 10-time champion siya.
Let me check.
Oh, the list
But
parang
yeah,
6 ang nakalagay, pero I'm not sure. But
but he's the lead center of each championship team, man.
yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm mistaken. Pero yeah, Manny Victorino, he was considered one of the 4 best big men ng 80s.
Yeah, at one point.
Exactly.
Diba? Oh.
Yeah.
And you talk about Mon Fernandez and Abed Kidaben having the ability to run up and down the court gracefully.
Yeah.
Manny Victorino also did that.
Yeah.
And yung bank shot niya from the right corner court, yun, lista mo na yun pag
Coast to coast, he can dribble.
Yep, exactly. And of course, Rara Racela also, saw him last night sa game. I think for me, Kiko also yung longevity niya really stood out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he was a quarterback on all of those champion teams on San Miguel. So, yun, that's pretty much my list.
All right. So, quickly naman, yung akin naman, no? Same as the rest of you guys on the others, I'm a firm believer that you should not include players who are currently playing in a list that is about the greatest because their careers have not been fully written yet. So, actually, I would be okay to defer Scotty Thompson, but because he's a one-time MVP, he's in my list. In the interim, between the time we put the list out on our Facebook page, same as Sid, I have had a change of heart on one of my selections. I love Dindo Pumaren throughout his career. In fact, I quickly put him in when we were asked, when we discussed among ourselves, sino yung 10 natin. But because of what has happened since then, studying more stats and then having guested him like a few weeks ago, same as Sid said, I will replace on my 10 Dindo Pumaren. With due respect to the Bullet, he should be there for the next 10 for the 60.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff Carriazo now is my 10th guy. And then the rest, you guys have explained why they should be there, and I agree with all of that. Danny Siegel, maybe one of the best, should have won at least one MVP. And the rest, the older guys, Abby King, Arnie, Nelson, Yo-Yo, Manny Victorino sa akin, I don't think there's even an argument against, valid argument against that. But, everybody have their choices. Somebody commented earlier na yung sa list ni Jay, dapat si ganyan instead of si ganyan. Hindi. And para sa amin, yun. No? So, sa inyo, sa amin, sa amin. But yung mas importante kung anong napili ng committee na ilalabas very soon ng PBA, right. Diba? But tingnan natin kung similar to ours or similar to yours. But I'm pretty sure magkakapareho tayo in some, magkakaiba sa iba. But that's a change in mind. So, Dindo, sorry, out.
Charlie, sorry, I may change the feeling about Jun Papa is the guy that I'm probably going to replace. And I am replacing him now. Since you guys have got official on the list, yung official changes na ginawa sa list, I'm officially changing Jun Papa, was one of the greatest scorers during his time, with also the Jeffrey Carriazo. So change of heart na rin tayo doon.
Yeah, I was looking forward to debating with you, Noel, on June Papa, but
okay na. Jay is a catalyst in changing my mind when he mentioned a few stats that I overlooked, a few facts that I overlooked. So, salamat. I'm now a Jeffrey Carriazo fan and replacing June Papa.
You're not the only one. I also changed my list,
Okay.
I also changed my list. I'm replacing Olsen Rosella with Jeff Carriazo. So that makes my list exactly similar to Charlie's.
So sweet,
what a difference a guesting can do, guys. Diba? What a difference a guesting can do.
So, tanggalin muna natin yung listahan on the screen, Carly, and then we have some guests. They've been waiting to weigh in.
There you go.
Pasok natin yung dalawa, and baka magulat yung mga fans. Kung sinong ipapasok natin, matagal na nila nakita, di nila kilala, but
Tinagalo mo talaga, ha?
When you hear their names, you know them. Let's bring in the first one. He's in town actually for some clinics. Yeah, he's very familiar to us because he was an MVP in the NBA back in the day, played as an import in the PBA as well. coached the Alaska Aces in his last stints here in the Philippines. Made a couple of finals also over there, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the 50 greatest with him. Let's bring him in. Alex Compton is with us. Coach Alex Compton.
Yeah.
Woo! Compton!
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Mga Inglesero pala kayo
Oo nga.
Okay, masabi ko lang, makwento ko lang guys ha. Makwento ko lang, si Alex Compton is the only partner I ever had who actually covered the game with me while he was stretched out on the floor. Just to let everybody know.
Because Noel, you have such a relaxing and calming voice.
No, you had a back that day. Stop it.
Yeah. It's called age. No, so si Coach Alex ang ating unang makakasama. Yung pangalawang makakasama natin sa araw na ito, some of you know him because you might have read his book. It's called Pacific Rims. It's a discussion about hoops here in the country, in the islands of the Philippines. And he did extensive research in order to produce that book, as well as writing for other great publications of Grantland, etc., etc. And he's been in the Philippines a few times. You might have seen him walking around during some PBA games, during the FIBA World Cup. He's this tall guy, di ba? Na puti. Tapos, ang nagtatagalog din. And in fact, may Tagalog name siya. Rafe ang kanyang
Tambay sa Katipunan.
Pero yung kanyang Pinoy name, Paeng. Let's bring him in. Rafe Bartholomew is with us today.
Hoy.
Yeah.
Hoy. Magandang umaga dun sa Manila. Hoy. Ayan, suabe ang writer na may bigote, di ba? Hoy.
Mr. Suabe.
Magtatagalog ng the whole episode.
Daming
Pwede
chicks na
na.
yan.
We're waiting for someone.
Kaya ko dito kay Alex eh. Siya ang master ng Tagalog para sa mga aming mga puti.
Pero you heard what we said, guys, earlier. Siguro age before beauty. So, Coach Alex,
Hindi, si Rafe yan eh. Kuya ko yan
no, can you, you heard what we said. Can you weigh in your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so like on this screen, thank you for inviting me on here, guys. And I think it's just to clearly establish that I'm the least knowledgeable and make you all look good. So thank you for doing that. I only moved to the Philippines in 1998, right? So I've seen who I've seen, and I've heard what I've heard by walking in basketball circles. So like one of the names that surprised me that didn't get on it earlier was talking to guys who had played against Nelson.
Yeah.
And the level of respect that great players had for Nelson. Like I would just assume listening to people, right, that Nelson would be on there. But I don't like, I always value these things for the older players. I feel like it's an award. Like we want to kind of honor our forefathers, if you will. And that's how I look at this stuff. But I didn't watch the games back then. So I don't feel like I'm equipped to talk too much about them. I can talk to, from a coach's perspective, guys that I watched, that I admired from a competitive standpoint as a player and as a coach. You guys mentioned one that I put on there right away when I talked to Charlie. And that was, I just always thought Jeff was a winner. Just a winner. Like as a coach, we want guys who make winning plays. So I remember watching their run at Coke. I remember watching him play a little bit at Tandwai. I remember watching him play later in his career with Alaska. And that, like, for me as a player and as a coach, the best compliment I can give somebody is that guy's a winner. And so as a player looking at Jeff, I was like, he's a winner. And I think I felt the same way about Olsen, about Bong Hawkins. You want to have a team full of winners, guys who make plays, right? So those guys really stood out to me. The stuff I heard about Nelson, and then Danny Siegel was unique. He was just different. So those guys stood out. And I want to say, because I know that for a lot of people, this probably means a lot, right? It would be so cool to just even be in this discussion, right? Like to have your name be like, are you one of the 50 greatest all time? That's pretty cool. So even if you're not, that means that you're pretty awesome. So those are guys that stuck out to me. And as we keep talking, I'll listen and learn some more. But I bet ang kuya ko si Rafe, mas magaling kasi mag-research yan sa akin. Back in 1977, the effective field goal percentage of this guy, I can't get there. So I want to listen and learn.
Sige, si Paeng naman.
Ako na. No, I similar to Alex, like Alex arrived in the country in 1998. I got there in 2005, and the first basketball games I saw in person in the Philippines, Alex was playing for Montaña Pawn Shop in the PBL in Cubao, JCSGO gym.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that venue.
I also saw Jason Castro play with the PCU team back then, and Gabby Espinas. Anyway, the historical knowledge I have comes from what people told me more than being able to witness it with my own eyes. And listening to your guys' list, I was looking at what I wrote down, and I was like, oh man, I screwed up because it was way too recent. But I had the same. I mean, I was lucky enough to spend time with Jeffrey Carriazo near the end of his career in 2007, writing Pacific Rim's that championship conference with Alaska when he was, a team captain. He was exactly the winner that Alex described him as, and also something that he did at multiple stops throughout his career, which I think is a good case for sort of the impact he had as a player and his longevity and just I think also in the history of the league, where as the entry of Phil foreign players and Jeffrey being one of the early Philams that came in the 90s and played through that entire era. And I think, Alex, you were around to see a lot of this, but I got the impression that, Phil Am players who landed on a team with Jeff Carriazo learned how to stay in the league, learned how to be good players in the league. And that was a lot because of the way that the model that he helped them, understand. And so he had a big impact. I guess my question, first of all, I'm curious what you all think. Do you think that the PBA's actual lists will be as backward looking as the list you all have come up with? Or do you think that with their remaining spots, they'll be looking to celebrate, very deserving players who I wrote down, like L.A. Tenorio, Ranidel de Ocampo. I mean, he's active still, but Paul Lee, I think, is the kind of player it's hard to tell the story of the 2 decades of PBA that I've been watching without mentioning players like Paul Lee. I circled Gary David also, even though he didn't play on the big name teams and win championships in the league. He put up a ton of points for a long time. Japeth. Anyway, there are these players who this next generation. If we don't consider them now, are they going to get a chance later on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Can I tackle one thing and then I'll put myself on mute?
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot Del. Del was terrified me coaching against him because he was complete and he was a winner and he was unselfish, but he would hit the game-winning shot if you needed him to, or he'd set the game-winning screen if you needed him to. And he was just an absolute winner. Ranidel was awesome, and he's like Olsen and Jeff, like those guys that I mentioned, that his brain was in a different spot. He was like Bong Hawkins, but taller and more athletic. Right. Like he was special, man. All right, I'm going on mute so I can learn now.
Well, he was my favorite player at one point in time too, Randy Del Campo. But just to put things in proper perspective, though, there was no criteria given to the committee. They had a free hand in deciding who was going to be there. I know for a fact, guys, because during the PBA games, we have a production room. You get all these chismes from the people, and some of them who are on the committee, like Kinito and Dr. J, would be there, and they would give us hints of what they were discussing. And one of the things that they discussed was, at least one of them was advocating for, who cares if he's a current player? So there was at least one guy pushing for LA Tenorio and
Mhm.
maybe some of the more current players, maybe then the recent retirees like RDO, Sanitos, etc. So those were some names. There were about 32 names, I think, which were thrown into the pot
Wow.
from where they were going to choose 10. That's what I heard. So some were more recent. There was also someone who suggested that we should look at the character of the person. If he was accused of selling games before, he should not be considered. Then he was shut down by someone else. This is the chismis I've been hearing. Someone else said, let's not. We're talking about basketball. Let's not talk about what they did off the court or whatever. So, and of course, there's no way to prove whatever anyone did anyway.
Exactly.
So so they've set that aside as one of their criteria. Then we can't include extracurricular activities, in the criteria. So wala talagang set criteria. So some were advocating for current and recent retirees, current players. Some said, no, let's throw it back. So I'm sure there's going to be a nice mix. To answer Rafe's question, I think many of our selections so far, the four of us, the AEOB, will make it. Maybe 6 of our 10
Yeah.
will make it. I'm pretty sure. And then the 3 or 4 are up for grabs.
Charlie,
Remember, you're only choosing 8 na lang, Charlie, because 2 in na si June Mara kasi si
Yeah,
Scotty
correct,
Thompson. So it's a matter of
correct.
choosing the next 8.
Charlie, let me also try to answer Reeve's question. No? When I met with Commissioner Willie along with the PBA Legends Foundation, one of the things that he mentioned that his preference would be to look back at the players of the past, no, and give them the recognition that they deserve now.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of waiting for them for their relatives to accept the award for them posthumously, it would be much better if they actually received the award while they're still alive. So I think that was a priority that Commissioner really wanted to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a question because Rafe mentioned Gary David. Okay, so Coach Alex, you were part of that Powerade coaching staff, right? When he did that famous, burning hands thing. So you saw up close how good Gary was. Yeah, that you upset Tim Cohn and BMEG, coached by in that quarterfinals, right? They were twice beaten. You beat them twice, and Gary just had that unbelievable game. So just for the benefit of our viewers, you saw him up close in practice all the time. Just how good was Gary David?
I think a skill, and again, so you got to understand, I'm a coach, right? So I look at things maybe different than numbers of an average fan. He was best at moving out without the ball of any player that I had ever seen in the Philippines. So Gary, you could think, oh, if he doesn't have the ball, he's not going to score for a lot of guys. Gary he got so many buckets off of back cuts, off of setting his man up off of down screens, about running off of staggered screens. Like, it's unfair to compare anybody in the world to Steph Curry, so I'm not doing that. But that activity of moving off the ball, he was the best I'd seen. And why that makes the team better is because everybody's trying to figure out where the leading scorer is. So he could shoot the 3, he could shoot the mid-range, he was great in transition. But if he didn't have the ball in his hands, he was still a major threat. And it was a really unique skill that way. So he was obviously special. I think he led the league in scoring maybe 3 years, something like that. He was a walking bucket. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nice perspective.
Well, some guys actually just to interject for our guest gentlemen. Some guys are making case for Marshall Lassiter has a pretty similar skill set. I want to wait on what Rafe thinks about including a guy like Marshall Lassiter on this list.
Well, I just want to say that right away, Rafe doesn't like Marshall because he beat us so often at Alaska, like my team. He really wanted me to win a championship, and so he's mad at me.
There's some truth to that.
Thank you, Mr. Compton.
Honestly, so the San Miguel question, if we're considering including more of these younger players that generation, it's so, and I'm curious what Coach Alex thinks, because obviously Junmar made those teams great. He's still making that team great and competing for championships sort of at every conference. And so, who would you pick of the available? There were so many great players around him. Arwind is already in because he was an MVP. But then there were, so people forget Jay Wash was there early on in that run and was a 4-time mythical team member. And he's probably not even close to people's list, but that's how talented those teams were. Marshall, Alex Cabagnot, there's so many players there. In the selection committee's eyes, do you think they end up canceling each other out a little bit? Or if you could only pick one of some of those remaining, Chris Ross, I didn't even say, my goodness, you talk about a winner, right? I mean, it's hard to say that anyone was more important to those teams than Chris Ross. So if you have to pick just one of the remaining San Miguel players from that generation who haven't who aren't already in the top 40, who would it be? How do you even choose between them?
Yeah.
They should just make it like 400, and then it's really.
Yeah.
No, I want to involve some of the comments. The fans, our followers. There's a fellow, si Polito, says, morning, sana kayo na lang ang kasama sa mga pipili na legit. Well, hindi po kami sinama sa committee. Wala po sa amin na sinama doon. Pero may konting influensya naman siguro kaming konting suggestions para sa mga nandun na kaibigan namin. But at the end of the day, confidential ang kanilang napili. May listahan na ilalabas very soon. So hopefully, medyo katugma nung atin. Yes, Marshall does hold the most 3-point shots made. There is one of the famous writers and commentators now in the PBA is advocating for Marshall's inclusion. And primarily because of that. If you're leading the league in 3-pointers, you should be there. And that's really a very modern concept, I think, now, because the game is all about 3-pointers. So on that alone, they want him there. But I don't think that's enough yet. For now, that's me. Diba? Pero may mga magandang comment dito. Of course, somebody said Don Ramon. Of course, Don Ramon's been there since the first 25. So out na yan. May nagsasabi, Jason Castro. Jason Castro. Pasok na si Jason Castro. And then we have a good friend of ours who mentioned it's a shame not to include Ronnie Del. If Ping and Kirby were already in the top 50, Del should be there. Okay, yeah, that's great. But even the inclusion of Ping and Kirby in the top 40 is pretty controversial as well. So, pero wala tayong magagawa, nandun na sila di ba? So, yeah, but yes, there is a case to be made for Ronnie Del, and I'm pretty sure if I were to name the next 10 after 50, 51 to 60, I think Ronnie Del should be there. So, he'll be there in due time. No, yan sa akin. Pero, sige, pinag-usapan natin. Let's talk about individual players. I think our next guest is here. Our last guest is here. Let's bring him in.
Yes.
Let's just bring him in already. Carly, bring him into the show.
Congratulations!
Congrats, coach!
I'm still in bed, as you can see. Guys, I'm still in bed. I forgot about this.
Naparami yata, coach.
Hindi naman. But guys, sorry I'm late. I think you understand why I'm late.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're allowed to celebrate.
We forgive you.
What a great win, kagabi. Congratulations to TNT, coach. But now we're talking about
Thank
the
you.
50 greatest. You were part of the 25 greatest, 40 greatest, and now when the 50 list comes out, you're there as well. We're talking about who we think should be included, coach. Maraming debate. There are some that are givens, no? Yung mga Nelson, Abby King, Arnie Tuadles, and all of those. Pinag-uusapan yung mga medyo on the fringes. Some are saying LA Tenorio, kahit naglalaro pa, Marshall Lassiter, siyempre mga Bong Hawkins, some are not sold on that, Olsen Racela, Jeff Carriazo, and all of that. What are your thoughts, coach, on sino dapat isama? Yung 10.
Sorry, I missed you guys when you started talking about it. So I'm sure we're not far from that from our opinions and me. Other than those guys that you mentioned, I think Danny Siegel should be there. Right? Danny. Tama ba ako si Danny Siegel ba?
Yeah.
Wala pa siya, yeah.
Wala pa siya
sa
Di ba siya kasama? Tama.
Yeah, Danny Siegel should be there. Oh my God, I remember guarding him, and he was really hard to guard. And then he won a lot of championships. It's just like me, he didn't win any MVP, but he should have won one at least. Right. And other than him, I would like to see Abi King.
Hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see Abi King there, and people forget how great a player Abi King was, and he was just his off court persona was just affected by all the things that he did that we didn't like. But if we talk purely basketball, Abi King should be there. So those were the
Agree.
two that stood out.
Abe's watching right now live, coach.
Hi, Abe.
Yeah.
Hello. The
Malapit
legend.
ka
Abe.
na. Malapit ka
Co-
na, Abi, ma-name sa top 40. So, di
Coach,
ba?
I talked to you sa press con ng finals sa no sa Kamay Kainan a couple of weeks ago, and you also had a story about Arnie Twadles when
Right, right.
you faced him in a game 7. Um,
Oh man, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yun.
Also Arnie
In
pala, yeah.
1990. Yeah.
Mm.
Can you just talk about that game? Yung wala si Alan Kaidik, he was injured, and it was Presto versus Pure Foods, diba? All Filipino.
Yeah, Arnie. Because Alan was there. Alan was the main guy in that position already. But Arnie's been a vet. He's been around already, and when Alan went down in Game 7, and I remember that because they won Game 1, we lost Game 2, so it was back and forth. They won 1-3-5, and then Game 7 came. I was just telling somebody about this last night. I don't know. I was telling Ronde last night. Ronde, I think that was my first Game 7, and I was a nervous wreck. Like everyone else was a nervous wreck about Game 7, and I remember even during that day, I couldn't parang di ka mapakali sa bahay because I can't stop thinking about the possibilities of Game 7, and being so young in the league, I didn't know what to expect, and I was a nervous wreck, as I was saying. So pagdating ng game, true enough, everyone was nervous. Although I scored about 23 points that game, game high, but the rest of the other guys was, they just they were lost. So in short, we lost to Presto, and Arnie had 35. I think he dropped 35 on us that night.
Wow.
So I
Yun lang
rest my
naman, ano?
case on Arnie.
Yeah, that was the Game 7, 1990 All Filipino, and yeah, Alan was injured yung left
Yeah,
hand niya in Game 6, so
correct.
he had to sit that out. And parang I think I was a Presto fan, no, sorry, coach. Pero
Yeah, it's
parang
okay.
when Alan went out, parang from a fan's perspective, ang tingin ko, you guys didn't know who to guard anymore kasi their whole offense revolved around Alan, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Manny Victorino stepped up in that game, Willie
Right.
Generalao, but it was
Yep.
really Arnie who, yeah, he took Nelson
Arnie,
to school.
yeah,
Yeah.
Arnie had a anong tawag dito? Parang he had a clinic that game on how to post up small guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was a master posting up little guys. So we don't see that a lot these days. We're in love with 3-point shooting, but mid
Mhm.
range back in the day is bread and butter. Post up, back to the basket, face up a little bit. So that was Arnie.
Yeah, and those are his stats. We're showing his stats. He averaged 13.6,
He's
3.8.
also one of the specialists. Yeah, he's trying to stats of Arnie, but we're also there's another guy who's holy.
Noel, sandali. Noel,
Noel,
sandali.
Noel,
Boy.
medyo choppy ka.
Noel,
We
you're
can't hear
choppy.
you.
We can't understand. Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
add lang, sis,
I'll say the name.
go, go.
Ball Hawkins.
Okay, yeah. Bong Hawkins.
Mm.
Ayan. Sige. Yeah,
Let's
well,
talk about
Jolas
Bong
was a
Hawkins.
teammate
Yeah.
of Bong. No, so if there's anyone here who can attest to
Mm-hmm.
Bong Hawkins' greatness and how little he jumped,
Yeah.
it's Coach Jolas.
Yeah. How about coach? How about Bong Hawkins, coach? Jolas.
See, Bong, I would probably compare him to like a Pinoy Jokic. You know, in a smaller version.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart with the ball, and he sees everything, and he can defend smaller guys, big guys, and parang he was kind of overlooked because of me and Johnny, and
Yeah.
sila Jeff at that time and Ken. But without Bong, we will not win anything in those. No, I'm not saying that hindi naman, but he was really a vital part because when we won a championship in '98, I think Bong went down with an ACL. So
Yeah,
we
tama.
can win without him, just like we could win without Jason and Mikey with TNT because we still had enough firepower. But Bong was a vital piece there, and he does everything for us. He rebounds, he defends, he's like a stretch four. Um, mahirap batayan si Bong kasi even when he was with Santa Lucia and I was in Alaska, he would match up against me and he would defend me very well that I get frustrated. So when we had a chance to pick him up, I said, Tim, you better pick him up because I can't go through Bong. He defends me really well. So we picked him up on a trade.
Oh, mabuti ng kakampi, no? Kaysa kalaban, di ba?
Exactly.
Yung ganong klaseng tao.
Pero
No, but
coach,
then,
what,
yeah, go
sige,
ahead. Yeah.
what made Bong Hawkins thrive in the triangle?
You can put Bong anywhere else in the triangle. He can be in the mid post, he can be in the pinch post, and he can be anywhere. So I think there was even what our team is doing right now is they have a play called Y, and we had that before a Y. Now it's just two hands on the side. It means that somebody a big should bring the ball down, and that was Brownlee now. So we have four corners, and Bong would bring the ball down, pass it in either left or right, and then he would screen away and form a triangle. So Bong was our Brownlee back in the day during the All
Mm.
Filipino.
I
So
see
you
Coach
can put him
Alex
anywhere.
Compton. He's nodding. Coach din kasi si Alex Compton. So, anong iniisip mo, Coach Alex, habang
First,
nagkikwento si Jolas?
congratulations, coach, and you deserve to be lying down, just chilling. Like, so happy for you, man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you, man. I totally forgot about this. Like, can I check my phone? I must be missing something today.
Yeah, coach. I
Well,
reminded you last night after I interviewed you.
Okay lang, that was before
No,
all
it's
the
okay.
apples.
It's okay. You're totally excused. Anyway,
I,
Coach Alex, go.
I actually do. So I was saying, coach, that like for me, from a coaching perspective, it's hard to do these lists because of criteria, but I always look like who's the winner? Who's the winner? And the thing I was saying before you came on is like Bong's a winner. Jeff's a winner. Olson's a winner. Right? Guys like that. Like, and I think whoever, I can't remember the list, guys, who put them in. And so it depends on criteria. LA is an absolute winner. That guy is a leader and a winner. Right? Like those guys who make winning plays on both sides of the ball. And my perception, Ranadel, winner. My perception of Bong was that he was that rare, he wasn't a super big man, but he was that rare big man that had like a point guard's brain. Like he was going to be the smartest player on the floor in many games, and he could do whatever was necessary to win. So I don't know how that factors in with you, but that's whenever I think about these things, like who would I want on my team? I want guys like that.
Yeah, that's a valid point, Alex. But again, even the criteria of winning an MVP, even if you're young and then even you haven't really proven yourself, you have to put him in. Like, come on, man. Like after the MVP, like we got some guys who were included that the one MVP, and after that, their career went downhill.
Yeah.
So how do you compare that to the guys who played 15 years and won a lot of championships?
Good point.
Good point. It's a good
Ang
point.
hirap,
Coach.
ang hirap ng criteria kasi na walang criteria, di ba? It's really just the preferences of who's on the committee. You leave it in the hands of a few, no? That's why it's really nice to look at statistics talaga, ano ba talaga na-achieve ng tao. And you're right, no? Just being an MVP coach, maybe, even in the NBA, they didn't include Bob McAdoo in the first 50 players, di ba? Kahit nag-MVP siya, di ba? So, yeah, mahirap. So there you see Bong Hawkins on your screens, first photo that we're showing now. But I think we're hands down, okay tayo kay Bong Hawkins, no? How about current players being included, Coach Jolas? You have something to say about that, I think, no?
I was included when I was still playing. So, for me, for as long as you have shown in your stats that your stats to back it up, and at the same time, consistency and being a winner, then you should be considered. Problem before is, I think there were some players who were included when they were still playing, and they didn't have any stats to back it up. Maybe in one category, rebounding or something, but in terms of scoring, in terms of other stuff, there's nothing to back it up other than they're so popular. So it becomes a controversy when you include that a bit of he's popular grabe yan, gilas yan yung mga ganun ganon. So
Yeah,
parang ang
or
hirap eh.
parang all-star voting, ano? Parang all-star voting, popularity.
Ay, nako. Hindi ko sinasama sa criteria ko yung all-star appearances.
Yeah,
Kasi
yeah.
medyo maano. I got a question for Rafe. Rafe, you
Mm.
were here when of course Coach Tim was still in Alaska, right? So and LA Tenorio had also just
Wala pa
come
siya
on.
dun.
Yeah, wala pa siya sa Alaska,
Oh.
pero he had just
Rookie
he had-
year sa San Miguel.
yeah. But those Alaska teams, I think Jeff came back ba nun? When you were
yeah.
here, he was here. So he was already at the tail end of his career, but you were around that Alaska team a lot. And I know what did you see from your own eyes on what Jeff also brought to that team, and what from hearing stories also about how he played.
No, I mean that year Jeff was he was captain of the team. He was also starting for most of the conference until he had a late season or late conference MCL injury that forced him to miss almost all of those playoffs. And I thought that it was going to cost them the entire thing. He meant a lot to them. And Jojo, obviously, you're there. He was still, he's starting and one of probably the second, one of the, I think when he was before the injury, he might have been the second leading scorer among locals that conference. So he was still, he was still in the late prime of his career, and his, he was consistently guarding the, kahit sino pa yung the best scorer of the other teams, James Yap back then. He was always getting that assignment and providing that leadership for the team, which was important because obviously the best local player for Alaska in that year for that stretch was Willie Miller, and you sort of Willie, Jojo, you can chime in also, but Willie has his own style of leadership and whatever, but you need the I think Jeff's more steady voice was helpful with all the fun and games that Willie brings, and sort of the joking side of it. No, he was a huge part of that team.
Yeah, I can see Coach Alex smiling when Rafe mentioned that about Willie Miller. So you played against him in the NBA, right, Coach?
Yeah. Yeah, and thank God he couldn't shoot back then. I struggled guarding guys to begin with, and Willie would have, if he could shoot the ball outside of 15 feet, he would have gone for 60 on me. I mean, he was such an athlete, and he developed his jumper later, but he definitely played with a lot of joy. He had some fun.
He is in the top 40, so
yeah, he is in the top 40.
So really lives there.
Interesting thing, guys. I got a question for you guys because you're the host. So Ranadell was a winner, amazing. Smart, like Mong, just shot the three more because the game changed. Really good post game. Could beat guys off the dribble, off of bad closeouts. Any game, probably the smartest guy on the floor. Like he brought all that. And Rafe brought up the questions of the San Miguel guys. Chris Ross and Marshall has a 3-point thing. He played both sides of the ball. There's not a lot of two guards that usually want to take pride in guarding. And I feel like at least for the stretch while I was here, he really wanted to be a good defender, and Chris wanted to be a good defender. There's guys like that, like in all this discussion, right? There's all these really good players that I like as a coach, like, oh, I wish I got a chance to coach that guy. Oh, it would have been so much fun to play with this guy. Oh, this guy did you see that? He doesn't have the ball in his hands, but he just made the right play that affected the whole possession. And those guys are all like smart and won a lot. Like I feel like that San Miguel team that I was a victim to a lot, right? They're like Jolas's, like Alaska's like run, right? Like they're like, okay, they're the guys. They're that Alaska team in the 90s. It's now San Miguel around Jumar. And you're going to have your hands full. So, I mean, there's a lot. Johnny's there, right? Jolas is on it, right? Kenneth is on it,
Yeah.
right? And then so how do you bring that criteria? Because those are two dominant teams with some great players. How do you guys look at that?
I think a bunch of them will be there. The San Miguel guys eventually.
Yeah.
Most of them are going to be there. Junmar is in already this year for sure. Arwind is in because he won that MVP, and then he did have a pretty solid career as well. But Chris Ross, he might be considered later on. They might look at the stats and say maybe not much. But if we're as mature as the NBA Hall of Fame type of criteria, where we can bring in guys like Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman and Michael Cooper, guys who play the defensive end of the floor, Chris Ross might make it. Lassiter's going to be there eventually. Maybe not now for me. But Alex Cabagnot, obviously, he's one of my top guys. So Alex Cabagnot will probably make it as well.
Yeah. I think Coach Alex makes a good point about the case for RDO. I'm just looking at his stats. So a 6-time PBA champion, 2-time PBA Finals MVP. Okay. One BPC award, 3 mythical first team, 1 mythical second team, PBA All Rookie team. So those.
And he dunked on Darvin Ham.
Yeah,
he dunked on Darvin Ham. That's right.
He dunked on Darvin Ham. So looking at that, I think these accolades also match up to some of those who are already on the list.
I have a question if I could jump in, Sid. Sorry, because I have a question for Coach Jolas. I don't know if you had a chance to coach him, but there's just a little time with Gilas, and he's really like what I imagined Bong would be like, which is he's a forward, but this guy knows exactly what to do on every play. Like he's like having a coach out there.
Agree, and he is tough to guard when you think about that, and really comparison with Bong is not far off, because Ronidel you just can't leave him. He's if he picks on pop, like you have to rotate to Ronidel because he's gonna bury it. And other than his scoring versatility, what stands out with me with Ronidel is he's a nasty guy. Like he would be the toughest guy on the floor. If you need to take somebody out, Ronidel would say, "Hey, that's me." I remember me taking out somebody and he got thrown out because he just challenged that guy straight to the face, like what Glenn did to Jab in the other game, game 6. So Ronidel would do that, and sometimes we lack that kind of nastiness in players because they're so image conscious. Randall is not like that. He doesn't care.
Wala siya kasi.
Alam namin ni Coach Alex yan. Coach Alex at Changsha, remember?
I was going to say he improved diplomatic relations with a Kuwaiti player.
He is nasty, man. Randall.
Yeah, he took him out.
Since we're in the same subject, what about Dennis Espino?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Dennis Espino, another guy that should be considered. I believe his name was in the thing, in the pot, no? So he was also considered, is being considered as well. So hindi ko lang kung napili
But I think Dennis only won 1 championship, I guess.
2 with Santa Lucia.
Yeah, dalawa. Ito yung stats ni Dennis, no? 13 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, 2 titles. Pero maganda rin, Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time All-Defense, 2-time Mythical Team. So Dennis Espino, definitely, if he doesn't make it this time, should be considered for the next 10. Diba?
Maybe.
Another big guy. Diba? Even through, we were talking about Dennis Espino. I know Jun Limpot's name is also in the mix.
I don't know about Jun. I don't know. He was a unique player. Also, I'll concede that. And Rookie of the Year. Well, he only won 1 title, and it was tail end of his career with Pure Foods.
That's
Gregorio. I think that's the biggest knock on him because he played for 13 years, only won in its 13th year pa. So, but I don't know, kanya-kanyang Just very quickly lang, go back to our data. Just looking at his stats, ngayon ko lang nalaman, he actually averaged double digits for 12 consecutive seasons in the PBA. Just Ronidel with a high of 15.3 when he was with Air 21. So nag single digits lang siya in 3 of his 15 seasons. So talk about consistency. For me, that's also a big factor.
And over a certain length of time, right? Coach Jolas already mentioned earlier, there are some na okay, standout season ngayon, maybe 1, 2 years, then after that, nag-drop off na ng todo. Is that considered a greatest career already for to be able to
Yeah.
be the top
Napaisip ako kay RDO, Coach Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, napaisip din ako. Yeah.
I don't I don't I don't know that this matters in the criteria, but just from a basketball perspective, he had a great back to the basket game. He was a great post player. And this isn't a knock, this is just a situational shift. He went to the dribble drive. But because he could shoot, he didn't post up nearly as much. So you didn't even see that aspect of his game as much. And you can't knock that because they won a bunch. So it's not that it was a wrong move. It's just that he had to adjust and play that trailing big a lot, play out, set ball screens, pop more than he was going. So that's that winner type of thing where like, okay, you don't need that aspect of my game. How do we win? I'll do this. And it's just something I really respected about him.
And also, he went from Air 21, where it was one of the teams where he's going to get a lot of opportunities and be featured because of his talent, to Talk and Text, where every player is all-star level, and still was playing alongside Jimmy, playing alongside Kelly, playing alongside Harvey, who is another all-time winner kind of player. He kept the same kind of. I mean, if we're just looking at numbers, he kept scoring. He was still, he still produced at almost the same level as he did in Air 21 when he went to a star-studded packed team and was winning championships or competing for them year after year. Isapang, for the kind of Bong Hawkins or the players who could do it all. Power forward types, won a bunch of championships. How about Joe DeVance?
Oh yeah, Joe DeVance.
Good point.
Won at a lot of places. Pretty much
wherever
Coach Tim
Tim
went.
Gone,
He wants Joe coming. He's still bringing Joe back for conferences if he will show up.
You mentioned Joe DeVance. I heard from one of the guys in the committee, Sonny Tos was also thrown into the mix.
Six mythical teams. Sonny.
He was a top center for a stretch.
Yeah. Well, both Alex and JoJo coached Sonny. Where do you think he fits?
Sonny's game, it's not sexy, he's like a defender first, and then I think his game was just his offensive game was it just developed later in his career, but in the beginning Sonny was so raw. We were really getting frustrated with Sonny, when are you gonna start making baskets? So like it came maybe third, fourth year like that. And then after that, you can give him the ball and trust him that he's going to make the right decisions. But it took him a while to mature as a player. But yeah, he was in a great organization, and he was with great guys. So, and he thrived in that system with Tim.
Yes.
And with that alone, we have to go back again to that winning, to being a winner. And Sonny won in a system where like Tim, he expects everyone to work together. There's no superstar, kind of. So yeah, you can throw his name in there.
Yeah. So he really was one of the best for one stretch. But we talk about Joe DeVance, na binato na ni Paeng, tapos si Sanitos, napag-usapan. Somebody even suggested Gabe Norwood in the comments earlier. But how about LA Tenorio? And Noel talk about this. LA Tenorio, syempre pwede, di ba? He can be considered. I wouldn't, because he still plays. For me, but that's just me. But if you look at LA Tenorio's body of work, there is an argument.
Absolutely, yeah.
So anong tingin mo? Coach Jolas, ikaw muna. LA.
Did you ask me? Sorry, did you ask me, Charlie?
Okay, I said Coach Jolas first. Then we're going to set you up.
I will be kind of biased with the guys that I worked with, and of course I would that winning attitude for me is I think it's a huge factor, because for a basketball player, even if you had gaudy stats, and then what did you do? Did you win championships? I won one. I'm not gonna even look at you. But for a guy who contributed in a lot of championships like LA did, wherever he went to San Miguel first, then he went to Alaska, then he went to Ginebra. and you can see that LA can bring people together. You know, even when LA was at tail end of his, when 2 3 years ago with Hinebra, we were going up against him. And every time he's there, LA is gonna make some plays for you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, yun yung mga mahirap sa mga players na kakalabanin na nag-iisip. Alam mo na they're gonna overpower you through their brains, not through their athleticism. And LAU is one of those players. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I would 100% consider LA.
Yep. Coach
And
Alex, what can you
Yeah,
say? You coached against him, right?
if he doesn't get in this year, he's got to get in the next time. Like
Yeah.
like I don't know the criteria, and I don't want to criticize anybody who makes that decision, but he's a winner. So I put him in for me.
Yeah.
In terms of pure point guards, from what I saw, again, you got to remember it's 98 forward, right? But I go Johnny, Olsen, LA, and Jimmy in terms of point guards, right? And then Chris Ross won a ton, right? But those four guys always stick out to me as like their brains are different. So you can throw stuff at them and they're going to counter. They're going to see what you're doing and it might be uncomfortable in that possession, but they're going to think about it and they're going to counter. Oh, they're doing this, we're doing this. Oh, they're doing it's really like having a coach on the floor. And I totally agree with, you got to remember basketball, we're talking about individuals
yes.
under the umbrella of a team sport. So that's why winning matters so much to me. It's not the 100 meters dash by yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how I always think about it. There's still the goal is to win. It's a team sport. And you could be awesome, but does your awesomeness enhance our goal for why we even exist? So that always impacts my thoughts.
Yeah. And of course, Rafe, Tenorio, yes, same
No,
thought.
I already had him in the 10 that I came up with.
Okay.
So yeah, he's one of the defining players of the last 15 years.
And actually, when I prepared this banner that's on the screen right now, it says, he still plays. He's played 700 plus games. He has won 8 titles so far, and I said soon to be 9. But of course, we know that 9 didn't happen because of Coach Jolas and TNT last night. So that's still 8, just 8 titles for LA Tenorio, not 9. So
But Charlie, right after that, 4-time Finals MVP.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
The stakes are high.
Yep.
Like, they don't get any higher than that. Who's carrying you? Right there, 4-time Finals MVP. You're like
smallest guy on the court. Smallest guy on the court. Yeah. No, he was also the guy he was a hero when they won the Jones Cup in 2013, right? So 2012. So yeah. So there's a case for LA, and he might come out, because of all of that we just talked about. Are we more or less agreed? I don't know if Rafe and Alex can weigh in on that, but Coach Jolas. Kasi kanina we presented yung kaming apat, Jay, Sid, Noel, tsaka ako, yung mga 10 na pasok na Scotty and Junmar dahil nag-MVP. So that's it. Then we agreed on Arnie, Abe King, Manny Victorino, Yoyoy Villamin, Nelson Saitono, and who's the other one?
Bong
Bong Hawkins. We all agree on Bong
Si
Hawkins.
Jeff.
Oh, then Jeff. Yeah, then Jeff Carriazo. So more or less, agree ka sa mga yon?
Oh yeah. Agree ako dun sa mga yan.
Diba? Danny Siegel pala also.
Yeah, Danny Siegel. Yeah.
So I think nagkakatalo lang tayo kay either Olsen or LA .
Yeah.
That's yung 10th spot natin, either Olsen or LA, which is a very fascinating discussion actually. Because they're similar in so many ways. Pero I think LA had different. I think LA had the more refined offensive game, but I'd like to ask all three of our guests, who would you want to? I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. Who would you want to be the point guard on your team if you had to choose, Olsen or LA? Start with Coach Jolas.
LA.
Wow.
LA. Wow.
LA. No question.
No question.
LA's been winning since he was in college, and Olsen wasn't even playing in college. Even when he was with Chot, he didn't get that starting lineup when all the other point guards were out. But LA's been at it for a long, long time.
Actually, high school pa lang, coach, no? Nagpa-finals
high school pa lang.
Don Bosco was reaching,
San Beda. San Beda High School.
Sorry, yes, San Beda.
San Beda. What about you, Coach Alex? I know you mentioned Olsen Well, Olsen and Johnny are two favorite point guards. But yeah, I'd just like to hear your
Or
thoughts.
Para
Well,
kasi
that's
Noel.
what
Para kasi Noel. Oh.
good problem to have if you look at the body of work. And so again, it's kind of like what Coach Jolas said. We're all biased, right? So I'm a 23-year-old comes to the Philippines. Who do I go watch? I watch Alaska and San Miguel. And I see Johnny and Olsen. And I had heard about Johnny in the US already, so I knew to keep my eye on him. And then I watched Olsen. I'm like, hey, this guy's smart too, man. He's a great leader. Like he's really like I'm trying to watch and learn how to win. I'm watching those guys. Now, so my bias, since I'm a young man or young pro, I guess you could say, was those are the two guys that I looked up to. So I can't help but bring that in, right? That's why I brought that up. But if I was to try to be objective, and I love LA, like great guy. I don't have anything. It's not like there's any non-bias for LA, but LA was a kid when Olsen was running San Miguel. How do you argue with what us coaches always say? The best ability is availability. 700 plus games. Like Olsen's, LA's not a big guy. He's tiny. Sino ba nagsasabi na small but terrible, right? Like he's got all heart, man. He's playing. And don't tell me in those 7 games he wasn't banged up some. Don't tell me something wasn't hurting, but he's out there leading his team. And I think if you look at the overall body of work, it's hard to choose Olsen over LA in that sense. But like my heart is like, oh, Kuya Olsen, galing yan eh. He's a coach, he's a leader. It's like who I saw. So yeah. But body of work, I don't know how you can compare the stats the same way.
Good point. What about you, Rafe?
Overall, I agree. I guess, see, Olsen, he was considered one of the snubs sort of in the top 40 or among the players who maybe deserved more consideration when the PBA added 15. And so there's and on one hand, if the top 50 will be mostly looking back and trying to correct some of those errors, make sure we preserve the history of the league. See Olsen naman, we can add him because he's important there. But if that's sort of only if LA will be at the top of the list whenever the PBA adds more players to it. It's because LA, I guess, and if I'm choosing between the two, like the question was, LA has a certain, and we see it in those finals MVP awards. He has this magic, or whatever, that sense, this instinct for how, what a team needs to win a game at, against the best competition at the highest level when it matters the most. And he did it again and again and again. I remember even when he was a rookie in Alaska, against Alaska in 2007. There was the semifinal series when he was with San Miguel, and he almost beat Alaska, I think, in Game 6, or that was the one where like a mirror, they had Dale Singson walked off the bench and hit a miracle 3-pointer, out of bounds play to send it into overtime and sort of save that series. But LA almost, Alaska couldn't deal with him as a rookie, and that probably is why Coach Tim wanted him for the rest of his career at every team he ever coached on afterwards.
May angas yan si LA din eh.
Yeah,
ask France, ask Nicola Batum.
Yeah. Hey, there's a name being thrown, guys, in the comments, and I've read about this many times. Bong Alvarez, Coach Jolas, Bong Alvarez. Pwede ba consider yan?
He's not there. He wasn't in the first 25.
Wala.
Wala rin sa top 40.
He wasn't even in the top 40. Bong Alvarez.
Oh
wow. I think more than anything, Buong Alvarez is in the category same as Arnie and Abe. Having really good stats, a game that you can say, wow, this guy's really athletic. But did he make his team better? So those are big questions for Bong. And then you add in his off-court personality. So it adds to the question na parang this guy wasted his career. Parang ganun. So there's always that story with Bong, but there's no doubt about his skills. But Sibong is the kind of player that I would say na not because of his athleticism, I don't think he would have survived the league. Para sa akin, because
Okay.
he never really developed a jump shot. He was just a purely athletic guy who can jump as high as anyone.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
Yeah, but
funny because, diba, with all his stats, naka 71 points yan and all of that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We haven't even talked about him. It's already an
without a
hour
3-point shot,
20.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Without a 3-point shot, yung 71 points na yun, while playing for
napakahirap nun.
that's crazy, ano. Pero I think also similar to June Limpot, uh, and actually also Asoy Taulaba, Bong only won one title. It's with Alaska in
Hmm.
1990 yata.
91,
Yeah,
91,
91,
91.
91
with me,
against
with
Ginebra.
me.
91,
yeah,
yeah, against
yeah.
Ginebra and Wes
Is that
Matthews.
the only one? Is that the only championship he
Oh
won
yeah,
with
Yes,
Yes.
with?
he did.
Yeah,
never in
what
San
was team was
Miguel.
that?
Never with San Miguel.
Wala. That
Oh,
when he was in
oh,
San
that's
Miguel,
all.
they
That's
weren't
probably
there.
because of Alaska.
Yes.
Yeah, probably because of Alaska.
Uh,
That's right. Diba? So
yeah, San
maraming
Miguel.
maraming pangalan na pwedeng ibato into the mix, but I think most of the real contenders we've discussed
Mm-mm.
already, di ba? And then some are givens already. Nah, there's one or two that well, there's five guys if they don't make it to this next list, eh, hindi ko na alam kung anong proseso ginagawa ng PBA, di ba? I mean, di ba? Come on, di ba? Yung nga, Arnie, Abe, etc. No? They better make it Siegel, Asaytono, but then the rest we don't really know what's going to happen. They're going to announce it by next week. I understand it's coming out. So timely yung discussion.
Actually, on
Okay.
April 2, on Wednesday, then PBA will hold a press conference to formally
April 2.
announce the April
Yeah,
2.
a
Yeah.
week before.
Yeah.
Yes, and then April 9, I think, will be the big event. No, to formally introduce those 10 players, whoever they may be. So
Yep.
yeah.
Well, pag-usapan lang natin, and this is the no-brainer Nelson Asaytono.
Mm.
Nelson Asaytono. You played against him. Halos kapanahon mo yan, Coach Jolas. He was the bull. We know how strong he was. But he also became a pretty complete player as his career went on, di ba?
See, Nelson, no doubt. When he was at the peak of his career, I think when he was with San Miguel, and Ron Jacobs was coaching that team. He showcased Nelson there, and we would treat Nelson like an import in the championship series. Even with the double team, he still came up with he could still drop 35 on us at any given night. We won just because he was the only guy who was trying to carry the whole team. But even with that system with Coach Ron, na si Nelson lang yung pinupuntahan niya, they were still in the championship. So that says so much about a person, a player that can carry a team.
Coach,
Yeah.
nung teammate mo si when you were teammates with Nelson and Pure Foods, did you actually see na parang na underutilized siya sa Pure Foods before?
He was playing. They were in the same position with Alvin,
Yeah.
Oo.
Patrimonio.
Mhm.
So medyo mahirap isabay yung dalawa dahil talagang pure power forward yung dalawa.
Mhm.
But Nelson he had just raw power, and he was just super athletic during that time. He didn't have a jump shot yet
Mhm.
at that time, but once Nelson gets the ball underneath the basket, he's got really huge hands. So kaya ni Nelson to go over you, and I could see the highlights. I couldn't remember Nelson. When you play against him, you can see the other games that he played in. He had some highlights where he would dunk on anyone. Ngayon,
Yeah.
nakikita mo na lang dumadang sa atin, si Japet na lang eh.
Mhm.
Oo nga. Oo nga.
Right, right.
Dati, ang daming dunker nung 90s, sila
Mm.
Benji. Ang daming mga
Berhel.
dunker dati, may mga maliliit, sila Bong, sila Samboy,
Erhel.
Yeah.
Kenneth.
You're
si
right. You're right.
Ken. Oh. Ngayon, si Japet na lang palagi dumadunk eh.
Oo nga. Paminsan-minsan si Kelly, mga once every 10 games. Kelly
Yeah.
Williams. Diba? So, but then no-brainer to, no? So Nelson is really,
Yeah.
my gosh, it's a travesty that he was not included in the 40.
Exactly.
Tama.
Considering those who
Agree.
were named instead of him. Diba? That's crazy talaga.
Agree.
Those are 40 greatest na yan. So, well, we're talking about all these great guys. Danny Siegel is a no-brainer as well. He might have been deserving of a rookie MVP like Benji Paras back in
Yep.
99, but he didn't get it because of the whole Philam thing. So, wala. Hindi na kailangan pag-usapan masyado yan. Sid, ano pang mga kumukulo dyan sa utak mo na tanong para sa ating mga guests?
Oh gosh. Siguro, ano nga ba yung sasabihin ko? Wait, come back to me. Why don't we go to Noel muna? Because I haven't talked in a long
Because
time.
of
Sana lang
I'm not talking this. I have already experienced.
yeah, no? It's like
Jay,
No, I'll mention Dindo Pumaren since kanina kasi the two of you actually cited Dindo Pumaren in your list. No? So I'd like to find out what our guest thoughts are as far as Dindo is concerned.
I guess we go to Jolas first again. No? Because
teammate niya sa Pure Food.
Yeah. Teammate ko rin to eh.
Mm.
Ang daming mga gwardiya na mga matitinik dati eh. And they might be scoring guards, they're point guard playmakers muna before, and Dindo wasn't really a heavy scorer, but he can definitely carry a team. So yun lang yung mga knock sa mga ibang mga players like Dindo na true point guard na hindi masyado umi-score. But he would make other players better. So ang dami nilang ganun dati. Ang dami nilang ganun.
How fun was
Almost-
it playing with Dindo? With Dindo as your with your point guard?
Si Dino came in, I think, that my second year in the league.
Yes, 89.
Ang point guard namin nung rookie year ko, puro matatanda eh. Sila Willie Generalao,
Onchi.
Sino pa yung mga point?
Onchi.
Bernie Fabiosa, si Onsi de la Cruz.
Ah,
Second year, pumasok na si Dindo, pumasok na si Al Solis.
Alsolis.
Yeah, I think Al Solis pumasok na siya. And Dindo, I played with him in the national team. So magkakilala na kami ng game.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
alam
yeah.
niya kung saan yung bola na gusto namin ni Alvin, sila Jerry, ganyan. And he was really our quarterback. And he realized that in order for the team to succeed, he needs to be the guy who will, make us happy. So that's Dindo.
Playing.
No, tsaka yung 5.84 assists per game, no? Almost 6 assists a game. That's really high in the PBA.
Yeah.
Assist totals are not
Mataas
high eh. Wala tayong mga Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson type of numbers here in the Philippines. So that's one of the highest averages in history, PBA history.
I think he's in the top, kung hindi top 5, top 10 sa all-time assists and steals, both categories.
That's right. So that's why we did have him on our lists, Jay and I, but we took him out, no?
Ako rin.
No, not me. Sid and you.
Ako. Yeah.
We've
In
taken him out
favor
in
of,
favor of Jeff.
in
Earlier, just to go back, and we won't touch on it much anymore, but someone commented na baka caught in the moment lang tayo kay Jeff Carriazo kasi kaka-guest lang yan. Pero hindi eh. We studied the numbers.
Exactly.
So I don't think we are just caught in the moment, no, dahil nag-guest siya recently about including him in our lists. So
I admit I overlooked his numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at baka he actually has a case to be named sa top 40 pa lang eh kasi 2015 na yun, 'di ba? And he was already retired by then.
Yeah.
So baka nga dapat sa top 40 pa lang Jeff should have been named already. He was a rookie of the year, part of a Grand Slam winning team.
Yep.
'Di ba? And
two-way player.
I want to throw this out there because I think Rafe mentioned it, and I say this as a guy who, when I played, I was not this guy. Okay, so I admire guys who do this, and it was guys who play both sides of the ball. Like we always only talk offense, but if you're a really good defender, it helps your team. Like it's part of the game, right? Like it's not like we're only an offensive game, and so some of these guys were really good on both sides of the ball. Like even as Jolas talked about Bong Hawkins, right? Like that, it's half the game. It's just not valued by the fans as much. So you don't acknowledge it. And I think like for guys like Jeff, he really took pride in trying to play both sides of the ball. Yeah. That helps you win. That sets a tone that isn't commonly talked about in the bleacher seats. So
a bunch of guys that we have mentioned, Abby King was a great defensive player.
Yes.
Was a great defensive player. Manny Victorino held his own as well.
Bong Hawkins.
Jeff Carriazo. So these are guys. So in a way, we do recognize they're all around games as well. That's why we're throwing their names. Dindo Pumaren, for example, was a great steals guy. So he was stealing the ball often. I didn't say that.
I didn't say that about you guys. I'm just saying the
Yeah,
common.
no, but
Yeah.
no. I'm actually riding on your point, and then just saying that yes, we also consider that, and obviously that's part of it because yeah, there's a
Yeah.
case to be made that Arnie Tuades wasn't a great defensive player, right? And
Mhm.
a couple of other guys, Danny Siegel. Remember, they would always attack
Mm.
Danny Siegel.
Mm.
Diba? He'd score 30, but you'd score 30 on him as well.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah,
would say.
yeah. Talking about defense, we haven't actually talked about Yo-Yo Villamin yet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Coach Jolas, you played against him when you joined the league '88. That was like the peak of his powers. He had just come off runner-up to MVP against Abit Gidaben. I know you didn't play the same position as Yo-Yo, but what was he like on the defensive end?
Hindi niya ako nababantayan before because he's a power forward.
Yeah.
I have very very little memory about Yoye other than when he was with Sunkist. And then I was with Alaska. I think it was 95. I think he was in the tail end of his career.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
wasn't really observing him at the peak of his career, but at the tail end of his career, he was still with Sunkist, still very valuable at a late age. And I think tinalo kami ng Sunkist because of Verhel. I think we were already
Mm.
celebrating. I think it was game 7 also. We were already celebrating because we were up 5 minutes and they were fouling and fouling. And then I would split his free throw, they'd foul Johnny to split his free throw, but they were making baskets on the other side. Before we know it, I think Yoyo made um, an undergoal stub that went to the top of the basket and went down. And short
Mm.
story, we lost that championship after celebrating already. So can you imagine how tragic that is? That was
Yeah,
95. But the thing is, we won the Grand Slam the following year.
Yeah, I was about to
yeah,
say,
yeah.
nakabawi ka naman. Bumawi naman kayo, coach. Grabe naman kayo. Di ba?
Buti na lang di kayo nag-celebrate yesterday kaagad.
Oo nga, oo
No,
nga.
no, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
but
know
look
in
at
that
this, oh.
brother gonna come back.
Yeah, never say die. But last night, kinapos sila sa overtime. But look at this, oh,
Yeah, they died
seven-time
last
all
night.
defense. Seven-time all
Yes.
defense. Coach Alex Compton.
Exactly.
You appreciate that, right?
Yeah, it helps you win games. I mean, you got to stop the other team too, right? So I didn't have the pleasure of watching him play because I came in '98, but
Yeah, but
I think he played a little bit in the NBA. Maybe like he was like
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
late
he did play.
30s,
Yeah.
early
He was
40s.
40-something years old already when you played against him in the NBA.
You can't judge a guy how good he was when you see him when he's 40 years old. So
Well, for me, the ultimate stamp of approval for being a good defensive player in the PBA in the 80s and 90s, kapag lumabas ka sa Tapal Bulkasil na commercial, kapag ikaw ang endorser ng Bulkasil, and Yo-Yo, he was one of them,
Yes,
along
yes.
with Jericho Diniera, and I
Philip.
think Philip
Philip
Cesar was the
Cesar.
original one.
Yeah.
And si Yo-Yo succeeded Philip as the face of Tapal Bulkasil. Remember that,
Yes.
di ba? Yung
Yes, yes.
at sa tag-ulan, Tapal Bulkasil. Di ba? May
Yeah,
ganung
yeah,
jingle pa sila eh. Di ba? I remember him eh. I remember Yo-Yo being the face of that.
And
So
because
yeah,
of that, we still use that terminology today. Diba? Oh, Tapal Bull kasi yun.
Tapal
Lagi
King.
ako, Tapal King, di
I
ba?
used to say it took me a couple of years to figure out what that was. I was reading it. I was sitting in the Ateneo library reading in the old magazines. Philip Cesar, Tapal King. I'm like, what is this?
What's a Tapal King, right?
that's a uniquely Filipino basketball term. Ano? Tapal
Well,
King. Di ba?
So much greatness we're talking about here. I think we've covered most of the players, if not all, who are serious contenders, no, to be in the top in the top 50 list. Those 10 names, eight names
Charlie,
actually. Yeah,
Charlie, can I just ask this question lang, no? Kasi
yeah, go.
the PBA Defensive Player of the Year, the PBA Defensive All-Team selection was started in 1983-84.
84.
Abby King only was selected twice, in 85 and 88.
Yeah.
The rest, despite the fact that he was still defending, a premier defender all the way to his Pure Foods days in 93 and 94, was never named anymore after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
That's,
that a travesty or something?
I was looking at those selections, So you have a center and two forwards, and Abe was, of course, categorized as a forward, and it was always Yo-Yo and Philip Cesar
Yes.
who were named to the all defensive team forwards. So I think there were the case could have been made for Abe in '87, siguro.
Yeah, Presto.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah. Great Taste won a championship
Yeah.
with him and Philip Cesar down low, but I guess the voters were saying, we can't have two
Yeah.
forwards from the same team. Can you imagine how terrorizing that was, down low in '87? It's Abe King and Philip Cesar were
Mm.
were there, no, down low. So, diba? It was terrorizing. But yeah, I think it was because of the presence really of Yoyoy
Mhm.
and Philip. You cannot argue against Philip. He was,
Yeah.
for me, the best defensive power forward of all time. I don't know if Coach Jolas would agree with me on that, but yeah, diba? Ibang klase dumepensa si Philip eh.
Ang depensa kasi yung criteria natin dati, supalpal lang eh.
Yeah.
Hindi na ngayon na trying to deny your guy and throwing
Mm.
shards like that. Iba yung criteria ng defensive team dati.
Mhm.
Diba? And
Guys who go,
then,
yeah.
when you talk about defense, si Chris Jackson was a staple in that defensive team.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all he did. That's all he did. Just put his body in front of you, and he's not
Exactly.
a shot blocker, but he was a great defensive player. He would guard anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
he's
yung mga old school guys, pag
Yeah.
nasupalpal ka, galing ka na dumipensa.
oh,
So, you know,
kaya yung
different times.
predecessor ni Chris Jackson was Chito Loizaga talaga. Kasi
Mhm.
hindi shot blocker si Chito pero babanggain ka ng ganun eh. So, 'di ba? That's how
Yeah.
it was.
Against Yao Ming.
Yeah.
Chris
yeah.
Jackson had those like Karl Malone hands. Like if you brought the
Yeah.
ball up,
Yeah.
you weren't getting it up. Like he got his hands on the ball like below your chest more than any power forward. Like he just because he couldn't jump, but he'd
Yeah.
body you up and strip you. He'd body you up and strip you. And it was
Couldn't jump, couldn't shoot.
Yeah, he couldn't shoot. He could play defense.
Yeah, yeah, that's weird.
Just play
That's weird
defense and
free throw
rebound.
eh. Yeah,
So,
that's weird free throw din eh.
paminsan nakaka-stress siya, di ba? They'll set him up, they'll kick it out to him for a three-pointer si Chris Jackson. And yun lang yung points niya sa game na yun. That's how it was. Coach Alex, were you able to come up with that 10 names to include in the?
I didn't. I wanted to talk
Yeah.
to you guys, but because for me the criteria really matters, and I really like who was it that talked to Commissioner Willie? I really like the idea of honoring the older guys. It's like there's a process in life. I went through this. Sorry, it's just random ramble here, but had a speech class in high school, and they had us write a eulogy for somebody who was living.
Mhm.
And just the general concept being like, look, if this is what you'd want to say to them at their funeral, say it now.
Okay.
Right. So when they have a chance, when you got these great guys that were foundational to the rest of us being able to experience success, they laid the groundwork. It's the basis from which we all spring and have careers. Then I'd like to see the older guys honored personally, but I don't know them well enough to really comment and give you any insight. So it's like unfair for me to do that. I can just comment on the guys going forward. So it was hard for me to make 10. Because I got to really defer to you guys who know the game well before I got here.
Right.
Well,
Now, how
there's
about you,
a-
Rafe? Si Rafe ba were you
Sige.
able to get a list of 10 together?
Pero nakakaya eh. After seeing what you guys have, no, I went forward
Come
a little
on,
bit.
man.
I'll give you my original list because
Go.
I'll give you
Yeah.
my original list to be honest.
You changed your list. Is that what you're saying? You changed
No.
your list.
My list
After
is
hearing
solid.
after hearing all of us talk, you changed your list.
No, I was trying to look forward. I started, of course, with Junmar and Scotty because they already have the MVPs. Danny Siegel, Olsen, Abe King. That's 5 now.
Yeah.
Ay, Nelson,
6, yeah.
Jeffrey Cariaso,
Mhm.
7.
and then I went LA,
Mhm.
Ranidel, and Paul Lee. I mean, he's still active,
Oh, okay.
but and he hasn't played with Talking Text or Ginebra, so he doesn't have or San Miguel. He doesn't have the
Yeah.
titles of some of these other guys. I think he's a winner, like a lot of these other players. The other great players we've mentioned. I remember seeing him carry some of those rain or shine teams. Almost. I think back to one of the 2015 import conferences when they went 7 games against Talking Text with Ivan Johnson. I think that it was another overtime game 7, like we just saw.
Double
Talking Text-
overtime.
Oh,
That was
double
a
OT.
double, yeah. I covered that game. That was my
Talking
first
Text
game.
won
7.
both.
Yeah.
Paul Lee was incredible in that game, and he was I just think that he's one of those defining players who didn't, his championship equity isn't going to show how great he was, but some of the numbers, especially when he's healthy, and his talent is just something I won't really. It's hard to shake. His feel for the game, his shooting, his shot making, sort of an original for me.
That's not a bad list at all. Not a bad list at all, man. Okay.
Yeah.
One of Rainer Shine's championships was against
Yes, I was
Lee
gonna
and
mention.
Buzzer. And I can tell you, he was the headache that we talked about most in the coach's room. Like, we're gagawin natin dito sa ball screen, who are we going to put on him, how can we switch, how can we change it up? Because the one thing that Paul had, he always played at his pace. You want to try to speed him up, you want to try, he's just like the most, it's kind of like how Luka's usually slow, playing at his pace, and he just Paul's just seems like he's always under control. So thanks for bringing up the bad memory, Rafe. I really appreciate it. Paul going out of his hands.
Yeah. For one good memory, or I hope, Alex, a player I wanted to ask you about, if as another sort of a great two-way guard who you once traded jerseys with, I think, in the NBA. If Don Ontiveros had played his entire career in the PBA, do you think we'd be talking about him to join this list?
Absolutely. I thought about it earlier in this discussion, and because I'm biased, as a friend, it was like, he could shoot.
Yeah.
He wanted to defend. He was highly intelligent, really highly intelligent. So when I first took over as a coach, I would watch extra film late at night because I know I'm going into a locker room with vets like Don, Eric Mank, Tony, who are going to ask me, well, what about on the fourth option if they do this, right? And half the guys are natutuling na sila, ha? Ang gagawin natin sa una, right? And because he's got a coach's brain. And I remember watching him when he was young, as Coach Jolas brought up, we don't have anybody dunk anymore. He came off some ball screens, like hard show, pause, attack the lead foot, one dribble dunk on a big man. And I'm like, I would always remember I wish I could do that. That'd be fun. I think he was a winner and a big time shooter. When the first finals we went into, we beat Rainer Shine. My first conference as a head coach, we beat Rainer Shine in a game 6. Where a switch went on in Don. And he's like, we're going to the finals. And I think he hit 4 or 5 threes in the last 5 minutes or something of the game. He absolutely put us there. So, I've got nothing but respect for him. Yeah, that's a great bring up.
Yeah, Don. I have another name. It's actually showing up a couple of times in the comments from our viewers. We haven't really mentioned it yet, but Glenn Capascio. He was talking about good defensive players because we're saying that Joya Villamin is a 7-time member of the all-defensive team. Glenn was an 8-time member of the all-defensive team, 5-time champion, PBA Comeback Player of the Year, an 8-time PBA all-defensive team. So are we overlooking him? If we're just talking about players who make things happen on the defensive end, I think Glenn should be also in that discussion. What do you think, Coach Jolas? Yeah, another one of your former teammates.
Isa pang kasabay ni Coach Jolas, 88 yan eh.
Yeah. Nung magkasama kami sa first 3 years namin sa we were drafted together on the same year. So magkasama kami ng 3 years. So I had no problems with him because he wasn't guarding me. But when I went to Alaska, then he was my primary defender every time we go up against each other. And Glenn was a two-way player, and I was looking at some films with Glenn, yung sa mga Pure Foods days namin. He could score. Yes. Glenn could score. He might not show in his stats because I was there. I was a prolific scorer, and Alvin was a prolific scorer. See, Jerry was a prolific scorer. So he's kind of parang kumbaga pang fourth option na lang siya or fifth option na lang siya. But definitely you can rely on Glenn to put him in the best score on the other side and expect that he'll do the job. So that's Glenn. And ang hirap lang kasi because saan ba natin binibase yung ano natin sa all-time greatest? Mostly,
Yeah.
kasi yung mga pogi points lang yung scoring yung hinahanap natin eh. Mostly like that, championship, yung ganyan. So, and then, the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, hindi natin masyado nire-recognize yun. If so, ang dami nating mamimiss kung ganun. Like si Chris Jackson should be there, Chris Ross should be there. Ang daming mga masasama na eh. So, it depends
Coach,
really on your criteria.
I'd love your opinion on this, Coach. But I want to know how many championships Rafi Rivas had. Now,
Yeah,
I can't put Rafi. God bless him, but I can't put him in the top 50.
yeah.
Right? But in terms, if we're talking about winning, it seems like where he goes, those teams end up winning a lot, right? Like that's a nice
11 championships.
With arms up the
11.
year.
He won 11.
Yeah, and you know who won? You know who won 12? Joe DeVance.
That's huge.
Pochwino.
Pochwino also won a bunch.
Yeah, Pochwino actually also won 12. But yeah, but Joe DeVance, if you look at his career stats, he actually also averaged double digits for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of his 14 seasons. So, of course, wherever Tim Cone went, he would also go. So, no. But yeah, someone mentioned Joe DeVance kanina.
Iba-iba yung criteria. In fact, in our comments, we've seen people saying Freddy Abuda, diba? Gabe Norwood. Yeah, so everybody's got their own ideas. And so it really changes from person to person. But hopefully the committee got it right this time. And the 10 names that come out, or the 8 names, aside from the 2 MVPs, are the right ones and acceptable ones. I mean, for everybody, not much controversy like the 40 greatest. Because when the 40 greatest came out, there was lots of controversy when that list was put out. So sana nga ayusin nila. I know we could go on for hours and hours discussing this, but I think we've talked about most of the main guys and the guys that we think should get in. So I think we need to end the discussion soon. But Sid, Noel, Jay, any pahabol questions for the 3?
Yeah, just one last name. Yung choice ni Noel. Si Estoy.
Oh yeah, Estoy Estrada, Noel.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if anybody's done research about this story from the 70s, but the guy averaged almost 20 points a game for 7 seasons in the PBA. So, and he's won 2 championships as well.
Yeah, these are Estoy Estrada's numbers. 289 games. Kasi short lang siya, mga first 5 or 6 seasons ng PBA. Almost 20 points a game. That's amazing. And 2 titles. 1-time mythical team member. The start, he was a mythical 5 guy. So Noel will stick with that one.
Can I answer?
Yes, go, Jay. Yeah, I was about to say.
Okay. I'm an old school guy. So obviously I would cheer for Estoy Estrada. No. But I cheer for Estoy Estrada. But the body of work does not make him part of the greatest 50. At least, no. Mas marami pa mas magagaling. He won the Mythical 5 in 1975 because he was one of the top scorers of the league. I think he was number 2 or number 3 in the 1975 season. He won 2 championships with Toyota when he was not a starter for the Tamaraws. It was actually Jaworski, Florencio, Fernandez, Abiking, and Arnaiz. Okay, so he was the 6th or 7th man off the bench. So after that, when he left Toyota in 1980, if I'm not mistaken, or 81, he gravitated to 80, and he went to Great Taste and then the Greatest Presto. So wala na nangyari sa kanya, in other words. So he had a very short season, and while it was very prolific, I really couldn't slide him to be part of the top 50.
Same. Because I don't think you can be a top 50 player if you only play 289 games. That's for me. Less than 300 games lang siya. Yes, he was a prolific scorer, but he only had like maybe 4 or 5 solid seasons, and he unfortunately he abruptly had to retire at the age of 32, 33 because he had a heart condition. Who knows how much more impact he could have made if he had played an additional 4 or 5 years. Pero body of work niya ngayon, as it stands, for me lang, I don't think he merits a top 50 call.
Yeah, yeah. But then as we said, kanya-kanyang choices yan.
Yeah.
Just a couple of comments I'd like to highlight about Glenn Capasio. Kung all-time bigote list, nasa first five daw siya. Underappreciated player, pero kung all-time bigote, like one supports on air. And then,
Isama mo si Franz Pumaran dyan.
Franz Pumaran kasama
Ayan.
kasama ngayon.
Kaeng.
Yeah, pero kung number of championships, ito, may nagsasabi, Jumbo Volado has all the championships he won. Diba?
Yeah,
Chris
tama.
Volado, lahat
Yeah,
ng
diba?
champion siya, diba? So, parang Robert Ory, diba?
The walking trophy nga raw siya, di ba? Kahit saan siya pumunta, nagka-champion eh.
Yeah, some are questioning Ato Agustin's inclusion and being an MVP, but I think he had a pretty good career.
Yeah,
Enough
his numbers
to
were
make
good.
it. Some are asking about Yoyong Martirez, and we know that as great as he was an Olympian and stealing the ball, his PBA career wasn't, 50
He was
greatest.
much better in the Mika. I think the same thing can be argued with June Papa.
Yeah, si Yoyong, he couldn't shoot though if his life depended on it.
Depended on, and he said it before he passed away. He told us that it's on record.
And yeah, I just Bog Salorado shared me this story when he was with the national team with Yoyong, when they were amateurs, and back then the coaches would only allow you to leave practice if you made 10 consecutive free throws. You have to make 10 consecutive before you can leave the practice. Sabi ni Bog,
Hindi umaalis.
si Bog, naka-shower na raw sila, nakabihis na raw sila, palabas na sila sa parking lot. Si Yoyong tumitira pa rin doon.
Ganun talaga.
Hindi pa rin doon siya makatenin na raw.
Yeah, people are asking about Bong Alvarez. We talked about him earlier. Jun Limpot and Espino, we talked about them earlier as well. And then ito yung pinakamagandang comment, Coach Jolas. Ang dami talagang controversies. Not about the 50 greatest, big controversy. Jolas could have easily won MVP award at least 2 times. Well,
yeah.
Discussion, di ba? Ibang araw na yan.
Yes.
Then maganda pag-usapan yan.
Wag ngayon. Oh, tapos
Yung
yun,
problema sa atin kasi may halong popularity contest di ba? I mean like, it's a Filipino thing. It's always a beauty pageant So
exactly.
That's what I hate about, the basketball in the Philippines sometimes, na parang, ano ba to? Paanuhan ba to? Padamihan ng fans?
Parang parang coach, parang senador lang. Parang senador lang, di ba? Anyway,
pag masungit ka, hindi ka mananalo ng ng award.
Exactly. Kasi yung media magagalit sa iyo, di ba, coach? So we talked about Yoyoy Villamin earlier. There's another comment here. Then best player dyan, si Bong Alvarez, dapat sa dami ng chicks, lalo na from showbiz. Okay, sige.
Let's not get into that.
But like I said, we could go on for hours and hours talk about so many other players, but we thank our guests for their input, di ba? And then
yes,
we talked about our lists earlier, and hopefully we'll see a lot of them come out when the PBA announces it next week. So thanks to Coach Alex Compton. Thank you, Coach Alex. We're glad you're
seeing you, Alex. Good seeing you, man.
Wait,
good seeing you guys.
Coach Alex, wait lang. I think you have a book that's coming out, right? Would you like to invite our viewers to buy this book?
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah, we wrote a book with a buddy of mine kasi idol ko talaga si Kuya Rafe eh. Sabi ko kung kaya niya talaga aspirational yung gagawin ko. So we wrote a book, we did some research, and we wrote a book on guiding your child's athletic journey. All of us parents are really well intended, but sometimes we're not overly equipped for understanding our kids and best how to get them through it. And there's something that I really think, everybody on here except for me and Jolas got to play for a living, and Jolas is a much higher level than me, but we got to play. That's great, but our life didn't end when our career ended, right? Like, you have a lot of life to live. But most people who play basketball or play any youth sports don't do it professionally. But it's a great venue through which we can parent and help them with character development and have some joy and do some parenting through there that hopefully build some memories. So we wanted to write a book for parents to kind of help them through the process. So we did. So thank you, Sid, for bringing that up. I totally forgot that we're talking about a book. I've enjoyed our conversation so much talking about all this. But the book's on Amazon. It's at fully booked around the Philippines. We just had a book launch yesterday. So, idol ko talaga si Ray. Sabi sa
So we have two authors here on our panel today. So yeah, please for everyone watching, please check out Coach Alex Compton's book, which he wrote with actually a former PBL player, right, Kevin Dalafu.
Yeah, Kevin Delafu. He's actually a career educator now. He runs a high school in California. He's a coach. He's 6-time coach of the year in his high school league. And he played in the PBL for a little bit for Coach Coy. So
Yeah, someone's
And as you
asking
can
if it's
see-
available on Amazon. Yes, you just
Yes,
mentioned,
yes,
right?
it
Yes, Brian Reynes, it is available on Amazon.
And it says there, it's encircled. It's the number one new release. So,
Wow.
kumikita na ng pera si Coach Alex dyan.
I think Rafe will tell you don't write books to get rich.
I'm still waiting for the checks.
Congratulations on that. Congratulations on the book, and I hope, a lot of people get to see that. Okay, so yun. So, yan na, yung libro ni Coach Alex, nakilikin po natin. Coach Alex, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on this topic of the 50 greatest. And we're gonna know soon enough who's gonna come out. So maraming salamat. How long are you in town and why are you here?
So I'm here for the NBTC. It's really the National High School Championships down in the Philippines, and it's an international tournament for Filipinos all over the world. So we have teams in from USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, all over Europe, the Middle East. It's a big thing. Coach Eric Altamirano actually really runs the whole thing.
Yeah.
We founded it together, but him and Marissa do all the hard work. And it's a really cool thing for the kids. So I'm here for it. I'd like to go back to the discussion and just say, like, seriously, for me, any of the guys that we talked about, that means they had incredible careers. Like, congratulations. If you don't make it, it doesn't mean just by being talked about. You guys obviously have been incredibly important to the game, and it's an honor to even talk about you. I hope everything good happens to these guys.
Right. Rafe, your parting thoughts?
Una sa lahat, salamat kay Coach Jolas. Ito ang sapatos ng binigay sa akin. I wore these antas until the shoelaces broke that he gave me 2 years ago. I like that model so much, I bought a new pair. So that's
You come back here, I'll give you another pair.
game. And then also, I think we should thank Junmar Fajardo for winning so many MVPs that it made choosing 10 new players a wide open field. Because if any other 10-year span in the league's history, we might not have had so much space to choose from. We would have only had 5 open spots to pick. So and then also, you guys, AEOB is such a resource. I think back to when I first went to the Philippines in 2005 to research basketball, the history of the game, the PBA, and the resources available back then were like napakanipis, no? Like there was nothing. And then and now this library of interviews you've done with so many players in the history of the game, it's the kind of thing any writer in the future, anyone who just wants to learn about the just how rich PBA history and Philippine basketball history are, that exists now because of you, and they're gonna have a much easier time than I did. And I love all of the you guys got so many of these bucket list interviews that I wish I had, and it's a joy to listen to. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you for your support, Rafe. I know you listen to all of the episodes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Coach Jolas, of course. Coach, congratulations once
Congrats.
again for your championship last night. Diba, another championship. Ang ganda ng yakap nyo ni Coach Chot. Kagabi, kita natin yung video.
It's just kind of improbable lang to happen last night. This was the hardest. It was harder than when I can't remember it when parang I might sound a little bit mayabang, but when I won in 23 by standing in, parang hindi ako nahirapan dun eh. Even last year with Chot, parang game 6, yeah. But this one's hard because we lost Jason. And I didn't think we would be able to pull it off. And Hinebra's lineup is stacked, and everybody knows that. And when Tim is looking at his bench, he would pick Hanmisi, RJ, or si Malonzo. Sa amin, pagtingin mo, sino kung bubunutin ko dito? Si Glenn Cubuntin, si Kim Aurin. So, it's crazy. You guys, you still need to chew on that, you media, about how to write about that.
Oh yes, don't worry, coach. I have that
You have
angle
to,
sa
you have to dissect that series in that regard. So
Bahala
it
na
was
si Steve
just,
dyan.
and this is where, I just want to give props to Chot, because Chot, man, like, there's just two opposite sides on, a lot of haters, and there's only a few people that love him, but you cannot discount the fact that Chot he's an awesome coach, man. Like,
Yeah.
medyo mayabang lang siya, sinasabi mayabang is, but when it comes down to it, o saan tayo, bakit kami nanalo?
Oo nga.
Isipin mo dun, kalaban niya si Tim. Kompleto yung lineup niya. Dito sa amin, sino-sino yung mga players namin.
Yeah.
So it's something for you guys to think about. Anyway, that's a different topic.
I know,
It's
coach. And
just so
also,
strange. We're talking about the 50 greatest players that's about to happen, and you have Alex Compton and two white dudes, man, as resource person. Only in the Philippines. And two white dudes that can speak Tagalog fluently.
Yeah, di ba?
Kaya dapat all Filipino version tayo
Lang
yun.
ya. Dalawang resource person, puti, marunong Tagalog.
exactly.
That was the
Exactly.
intention, Coach. We wanted people to think, bakit may mga puti rito pag pinag-usapan natin to?
Ang galing niyo talaga mag-isip.
Actually, last week ko lang naisip na invite si Coach Alex. I bumped into him during the press con of NBTC sa Buffalo Wings and things, diba? And then
Perfect choice. Perfect
yeah, I
choice.
got to thinking, why not Coach Alex? Because he's a coach. He coached
Yeah.
again, and he coached all of these other players, diba?
Mas marami pang kilalang player to si Alex kasi sa ibang mga coaches dito eh.
Correct.
Exactly. And then, of course, I thought about Rafe then, because if you're looking for an almanac on Philippine basketball, Rafe has done as much research as anyone out there. Right, diba? So,
Pwede mag-host
You
ng
guys
AEOB.
should apply for dual citizenship already.
Naturalized na agad yan.
Naturalized na yan.
You can speak Tagalog, so dapat naturalize na kayong dalawa.
Correct. Ang dami dito mga film, hindi pa rin marunong hanggang ngayon.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Pag sabihin nila mahirap matutong Tagalog, just look at, I present to them Coach Alex and Rafe. Diba?
Yep. So salamat. Thanks
Pero
guys.
kung Mariah Ginger is,
Ano? Ano sabi mo?
si Mo Ginger is,
Noel, hindi ka namin marinig. Sorry talaga, sorry.
Once
Coach
again,
Jolas,
thank you sa-
sorry, Coach Jolas. Umuulan, puti talaga si Mr. Suave, no? Pre, come on, one time. Oy.
Ano pa niya?
Nice. So before we go, pati lyrics ng parokya, alam ni Ray.
Alam. Kabisado
Grabe
lahat.
talaga. This is
Lumabas yan sa isang series dito, di ba?
This was our discussion on the PBA's 50 greatest. They're going to be named soon. So after they're named, maybe we'll come back and talk about the choices here on our show. Just to announce everybody, we're not going to have a show next week. Break muna kami ng isang linggo. But before we let you go and then say goodbye, we'd like to remind everybody we're part of the Globally Ballin Network, and you can watch and listen to us on Spotify. If you enjoy our show, give us a 5-star rating, please. We love you forever. And then the number one episode on Spotify is Benji Paras. So keep watching the other episodes so you can bring your players up. Diba? And Benji's still there. Top 8 episodes. Benji's at number 1. Tim Conniff's there. Pido Harenso, Kaidik, etc. They're all there. So keep watching us on the YouTube channel. And we're part of the Globally Ballin Network. We thank San Miguel Corporation for backing us up. Tumilugan Farm as well helps us out for XSROs, which we're not having today. And then we thank Archives, Diaries, and Sports Bureau for the pictures and the info. And we wish our AEOB family members who celebrated their birthdays this past week, happy birthday. Joby Hubinal, Dexter Strauss, Oscar Rocha, John Best, Ponky Alolor kahapon, Byron Scott as well, So happy birthday sa inyo. Byron Scott's in town, by the way.
Yeah, he
Coach
is.
the
Happy
Milan
birthday.
Select Team. Yeah, happy birthday. So that's it. The PBA's 50 greatest. Hey, we're just giving suggestions. We don't know who's gonna come out on the list, but hopefully the rightful ones come out on that list. Maraming salamat, Coach Alex Compton, Coach Jolas, Paeng, Bartholomew. Thank you for coming on. Jay Mercado, Sid Ventura, Noel Zarte, ako po si Charlie Gona. This has been episode 250. Umabot na kami ng Eternity of Basketball. And thank you to everyone for joining us. It's now in the books. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you all soon. Take care. And by that time we see each other again, meron ng 10 names sa 50 greatest na idadagdag. Thank you so much, guys. Coach, congrats.
Thank you, thank you.
Grace,
Thank
Coach
you.
Alex.
Props.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
A leader in key sectors so vital to the growth of our nation. Food, beverage, packaging, infrastructure, energy, and power. Proudly Filipino, through our well-loved brands, we carry the flag overseas. Yet we've always held out for ourselves a larger purpose. To use our scale, size, and dynamism to deliver products and services that can unlock and accelerate new opportunities for growth and drive our economy forward. We are committed to contribute to a resilient and globally competitive Philippines, where businesses like San Miguel can use their resources and imagination to expand the economy and ensure that prosperity is widely shared. Today, our focus is on generating investments and projects that will enable our country to achieve its full promise. Malasakit is woven into all that we do, from ensuring that more Filipinos are food secure, have access to reliable, sustainable, and affordable energy, world-class roads, airports, mass transit, stronger communities, and greater economic opportunities. We are helping build the Philippines that can carry our 110 million strong population into a future whose defining challenges of our time will be an energy transition, resource scarcity, and the need for greater inclusiveness. As a company, we have set our sights on building the nation of our dreams. By leveraging our expertise, leadership, and reach, as San Miguel, we will do what it takes to build a better future for all Filipinos.